Most of us don't actually own our own income. Even if on paper we earn a decent salary and outwardly appear like we're doing fine, we rent it. If we stop working, the money stops too. This is the context most people are trying to build life within, and it matters more than we're usually encouraged to acknowledge. And to keep reducing inside a system that doesn't leave much room for rest, illness, uncertainty, or slowing down without consequences. When money feels stressful or chaotic, the advice we're usually given zooms in on the individual. Budget better, spend less, be more disciplined, make smarter choices. And for some people, that does help, at least to a point. But the larger issue is that we're operating inside a system where money is rarely used as the tool that it's meant to be. Instead, we're taught that having money is having things. It's upgrading our lives and visibly demonstrating success through consumption. In that context, even sensible people can end up using money in ways that prioritize appearance and reassurance over actual stability, because the cultural definition of wealth is built around stuff and not time. So money becomes less about what it can do for you long term and more about how convincingly it can signal progress in the short term, especially in a culture where a good life is measured through visible improvements rather than internal stability. So when people say they're bad with money, and I hate it when people say that, they're talking about the fact that money ends up doing emotional labor that it was never actually designed to do. When life feels repetitive, uncertain, or emotionally flat, spending can create the sensation that something has changed. A purchase introduces novelty, a before and after, a brief feeling of disruption to the sameness of your days. It gives you something new to focus on, something to anticipate, something to organize yourself around for a moment, which can be enough to quiet the discomfort without ever actually addressing what's underneath. So purchases aren't just purchases, they're small identity repairs, because they allow you to momentarily become the version of yourself that you're aiming for without having to sit with the slower, more uncomfortable work of actually building that life. So in a culture that constantly tells you who you should be, what you should look like, how your life should be progressing by now, spending becomes one of the fastest ways to temporarily feel aligned with that story. But it's short-lived, which means the behavior has to be repeated. And because we live in a system that makes spending so frictionless and saving and investing and building wealth very abstract, that loop is very easy to fall into. And my God, this is not a personal failing. It is a structural problem. And if more people became aware of it, the system that we live inside would probably fall apart. Wouldn't that be a shame? But recognizing that loop and doing something about it is what this account is all about. So, hello, I am Sarah, your money mate. I used to be really bad with money because I grew up very low income and financial literacy wasn't taught at my school, it wasn't passed down from my parents. So as I got older, I used money to buy things that made my life look better than it felt. I chased short-term dopamine. I have ADHD, I have dopamine dysregulation. I upgraded my surroundings in the hope that it would translate into a better version of myself. And I repeatedly purchased things that I later regretted. I was focused on making the present feel good and impressive or different without really considering what those choices were doing to future me. So money wasn't helping me build stability, it was helping me avoid discomfort. And I was sick of feeling discomfort from growing up low income. So this channel exists to inspire a very different kind of relationship with money and to show in real time how I'm building mine as a blueprint that I'm actively working from. Here I talk about how money systems actually work, why so many capable and thoughtful people struggle with money, and how financial literacy can be used to fund a life that feels calmer and more intentional and less goddamn performative. This is where intentional living meets financial literacy. So if you've ever felt like you're constantly starting over, you have to rebrand your life, or you're trying to catch up to a version of success that never quite settles, the problem my lovely viewer, might not be you. It might be that nobody ever taught you how to stop cutting flowers and start building roots. There is a quote that I think perfectly encapsulates our perceptions of money. Maybe your garden isn't growing because every time you grow a flower, you cut it to prove to someone that you're a gardener. If you picture a wealthy person as having a beautiful garden of flowers, all people see are the flowers in the garden. So when they go to create their own garden, every time a flower grows, they cut it and they hold it up and say to everyone, "Look, I'm a great gardener." And then the flower dies, it doesn't grow back, and that person has to start all the way back from square one. I want you to picture cutting the flower as spending your money. Now, cutting flowers isn't the bad thing. Flowers can be a really great way to decorate your home and add joy to your life, so I'm not saying stop cutting flowers. But if all you do every time you grow a flower is cut it, it's going to be so much harder for you to have a garden full of flowers which you can actually enjoy. So good gardeners plant lots of flowers, and they recognize that they might not be able to have any flowers for a while. They sacrifice their time and dedicate themselves to doing a lot of gardening for a while. They'll be tending to the soil, they'll be protecting the bulbs, they're anticipating the weather. Good gardeners are patient, disciplined. They diversify how many flowers they plant because some will grow, some might not. And for a long time, onlookers will look at their empty garden and think, well, she's not a very good gardener. But this gardener isn't really concerned about what other people think of them because they know that under the soil, there are so many flowers growing really strong roots. So then with patience and with lots of time, their flowers start budding. Now, some didn't make it, but that's okay because some did. And even when their flowers start showing, they keep planting more bulbs that will grow throughout the year. Some of those flowers the gardener will cut to enjoy, but she will keep more flowers growing than the ones that she cuts. And eventually, because she has been so careful and so disciplined, she can just stop working and the garden does the work for her. The seeds from all of the flowers that she's planted will fall into the soil, plant themselves, and keep growing. So she sits in her lovely, abundant garden on a beautiful sunny afternoon, and onlookers will look at her in her abundant garden and they will think either, "Look at her showing off her garden, I can't get mine to grow." Or, "Wow, that is such an impressive garden, I want that so bad," and then proceed to do nothing about it. Or, what I said before, they'll get so inspired by this beautiful garden, but every time they grow a flower, they cut it. What I have just described to you is exactly how money, investing, compound interest, and wealth works. The system that we live in rewards visibility, novelty, and constant motion. It does not reward patience, maintenance, or long-term thinking, even though these are the things that actually create security. So a lot of people learn without realizing it to use money as proof. Proof that they're doing okay, proof that they want to move forward, proof that they're not stuck, proof that their life is impressive. But proof is very, very expensive to the individual. It's the cut flower because proof doesn't compound. Proof doesn't create resilience. Proof doesn't make tomorrow easier. And we take from the future to make the present feel more convincing. So we spend money in ways that create proof rather than stability or the roots that I talked about. And this is where the idea of tending becomes really important because tending is the opposite of proof. Tending to a garden in real money terms looks unremarkable from the outside, and you need to get comfortable with that because it looks like lowering your baseline cost of living instead of inflating it. It looks like building savings that you don't touch. It looks like investing consistently even when it feels really boring and you want to use the money now. It looks like buying fewer things, but ensuring the things that you do buy are good quality and last for a really long time. It is the difference between cutting flowers and planting bulbs. But what is equally important is recognizing when your garden is big enough. So people often hear the word enough and they assume that it means wanting less or shrinking your life or opting out of ambition altogether. That is not what I mean. Enough isn't about deprivation, it's about definition. Enough is the amount of money that allows you to stop organizing your life around fear. It's the point where money starts dominating your attention and starts supporting the way that you want to live. Enough isn't a number that looks impressive to other people. Sod what other people think at this point. It's a number that lets you exhale and stops you running on the hamster wheel or being in the rat race. And to reach that point, there is a shift that most people are never taught to make. And even wealthy people, in fact, most wealthy people, do not understand this concept of enough. So that's when they become very greedy and they keep chasing money, and that's when excess starts to become involved. Enough is what I will be teaching you, and I am not interested in excess and overconsumption. So if that is something that you're interested in, this is not the account for you. So I think it's really important that I'm really specific with you here, because vague ideas about money aren't always very helpful. My definition of enough isn't glamorous and it isn't designed to look impressive to anybody else. I'm not trying to look rich, I'm just trying to be free. So for me, enough looks like a modest house where the mortgage is paid off, a modest car where it's paid off, a baseline cost of living that is very low and predictable and not constantly pressing on me. So while I want to own my own home, I will be getting a much lower mortgage that I can actually afford so I can pay it off quicker and have a paid off asset. I will not upgrade my life when my income increases because I genuinely do not need a massive house anyway. It's too much cleaning. My enough looks like a 7-figure stock portfolio so that the growth and income from that portfolio can give me time, flexibility, and options over decades. And I get to that portfolio number by increasing the gap between what I earn and what I spend, consistently investing and letting time do the heavy lifting for me, and allowing my investments to compound and reach a figure where I can live on the interest as a comfortable salary. That modest income then makes work optional rather than compulsory. And because I don't want to have to work if I don't want to, it will mean that I can do things that I actually enjoy. Music, I'll have access to nature, growing my own food, writing, reading, creative projects, traveling without asking permission for the time off. And most crucially, the financial capacity to help my family and friends and people and causes that I care about without destabilizing my own life. And something that I'm particularly passionate about is ensuring more people who will do good with money have it. But that's for another video. So that's my enough. Yours might look completely different, but it deserves to be defined deliberately rather than absorbed passively from whatever version of success happens to be the loudest around you. So if you're ready to learn more about how to make this possible, to have your understanding of money, consumption, and maybe even your identity gently challenged, and if you want a life that gives you time, intention, and safety, then hit that subscribe button. And welcome. I am absolutely delighted to have you here on this journey with me.